wow.
Hi.
Hi, Hannah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm trying to
Good.
figure out how to get
It's okay.
my...
Get yourself situated, get yourself settled, and then we'll get started. It's good to see your face.
Yeah, you too. I mean, I see yours all the time, but...
It's not very often we get to see the person behind all of the Walnut Hollow
Right?
stuff, so it's nice to see you. All right, we've got a whole bunch of questions that I am so excited to get through.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
So many fun things and a bunch of great questions from my audience.
Oh, good.
We're going to get through as well. But I would love it if you would just kind of start off by introducing yourself and just, giving a quick little run through of Walnut Hollow and what you guys do and what you're about and all of that stuff.
Okay. So my name is Hannah. I'm the person that runs Walnut Hollow's social media, so I've probably talked to pretty much all of you before. So my family started Walnut Hollow in 1972. My grandpa was the founder. So him and my grandma kind of got it running. And now it's still family owned. My mom is the president. My uncle's the CFO. My aunt works there. My mom's cousin works or runs the plant. So it's still very much a family business. And yeah, we've been growing ever since, evolving with the market and trends, and yeah.
It's just been getting bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you talk about for a second, because you're called Walnut Hollow,
right?
But walnut isn't in your repertoire of wood. So how did the Walnut Hollow come about, the name?
So that started, our first product was actually a walnut country round, which was like the super vintage. Like some people have posted those ones before. They're much smaller and the walnut is a lot darker, but it's a really hard wood and it's hard to source. So we found that as we kind of evolved into the wood burning tools that it didn't burn well. So we started adding basswood into our line and we still have some walnut, but it's with our taxidermy line, which many of you probably don't know that we have.
I don't even know about this. Yeah, see, look, we're already
yeah. So being in Wisconsin, we're big hunters and fishermen and all of that. So we also have a taxidermy line. So we sell panels and mounts and stuff to taxidermists to put animals on.
No idea.
Yeah. So that's been around for, probably over 5 years for sure. My uncle kind of started that little division. So we're in Cabela's and Bass Pro Shops and all that.
Cool.
So you can search that too.
I'm already learning things. This is great. This is so great. So I want to know, how are you doing? How is Walnut Hollow doing amongst this pandemic? How have you guys had to shift things, and what does it look like for your business right now?
Well, it's pretty weird. So we're still in production mainly because, well, we're considered an essential place based on all of the information that we've gotten from the government. So right now is our busiest time for producing logs. Okay. So basically for manufacturing the logs, there's a certain time when you have to cut and bring them all in. So after that first deep freeze of winter is when our suppliers can start cutting the logs, and then they all get delivered to our log lot. And they basically sit there as we keep pulling them through, but if it gets too warm, they will start to mold. So right now we're trying to push all of those logs through, because if we don't, all of that raw material will be
go to waste.
Yeah. And it is starting to get really warm here. So we still have a crew working on those, but otherwise that's really the only thing that we're working on in manufacturing. And then most of the office people are working at home. So I've been working from home for, I think this is my 4th or 5th week.
Wow. Okay. So your job as far as what you handle hasn't changed too much, except for you're not going into the office anymore.
Right. Yeah. And it's easy for me to work remotely since everything's pretty much online, but.
Well, and you guys have paused your online sales at the moment, correct?
Yep. Yeah. That was just to you know, focus on the priorities right now. And I mean, I know it's sad that you can't order, but we'll be back up and running once all this is over. So
Yeah, yeah. It's just a matter of time.
yeah.
We all have to wait it out.
Yeah.
And hope that you've got enough stashed away to keep you busy during this time.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my little stash over.
Oh yeah.
That's my haul. So one thing that I love about your company is that you guys have kind of always had sustainability as part of your business and your practice and what you're about. And so I would love if you would just kind of talk about that, because that's something that is important to me, and I know it's important to a lot of other wood burning artists and other artists that use your wood. There's something about using wood. We all love wood, but we want it to come from a sustainable place, and so knowing that it is always so nice. So I would love for you to just kind of touch on that for a minute.
Yeah, so conservation has always been a huge passion of my family's. So my grandpa, the main reason why he founded this product was because we have a ton of land like in this area, so he would maintain and harvest trees on our land. And so he would tag them and then like measure them and keep track of how they're growing and whatever. I don't know all of the specifics of that, but as they were ready to be harvested, he would cut them down, and then my grandma would he would cut the limbs into slices, and then my grandma would decoupage them. So that's how this kind of all started. So it basically was started through this conservation act. So he's always been really involved in the community, and he was really into like planting this prairie that we have in our town and all of this stuff. So basically, I feel like our business practices have never really like skewed away from that at all. So one thing is that, well, obviously we're made in the USA, which is really important, and really important to us to like tell our customers that. And you know, we're providing a lot of jobs to local people, which is like the social side of sustainability.
Yes.
And then as far as like all of our like waste and stuff, so none of our wood ends up in landfills, which is something that we pride ourselves on. So we do collect wood waste, and if it's bigger pieces, it's kind of ground up to be sent out for livestock bedding for farmers in, I think it's just in Wisconsin, but it might be like Iowa, around that area.
That's so awesome.
And then also in our manufacturing plant, we have a dust collecting system, so it's constantly running. So you'll find like, compared to other like wood manufacturers, our plant is really clean. Of like, we don't have like barely any sawdust, because it all gets sucked up into these, we have like this tube system above everything, and it goes into this huge silo that's emptied out whenever it gets full, and it's taken for livestock bedding as well.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. So
Yeah.
every single part of every tree is being used for a purpose in a way that is sustainable.
Right.
That's awesome. I love, like, it just is so cool to hear more about it, because I knew like bits and pieces, but I didn't know all the parts about like dust, dust collection and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
and it's,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, we've had a lot of those things for a really long time. So it was my grandpa who kind of was ahead of the game and was
Yeah.
thinking, how can we help other people around the area too?
Well,
And
you can just tell that like it was the love of trees that started it all, and that
Yeah.
has just continued through. So it's just cool to see. Okay, so I would love it if you would give us a little rundown of some Walnut Hollow products and what you offer, especially since I just learned about this taxidermy
Yeah.
that I had no idea about. And if you have any pieces that you want to show off, feel free. I know I've got some pieces that are like my favorites and things that you guys have.
Yep.
Personally, this is one of my favorites. I don't know if you all know this, but my art is on the packaging, which is really, really exciting for me. So I keep this one in my house in its original form
Yeah.
in my closet. I do pull it out on occasion and use it, because I have two. But it likes to sit in its pretty packaging. And then I've got a bunch of wood products too that I think are some of your newer stuff.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell me if this
The most
is
recent stuff I sent you is pretty much
Yes.
all new. Yep.
So this one's new. I love this. It comes with a little hanger, and that's basswood, right?
Yep.
I got these guys. They're just such great sizes and shapes. And a rectangle.
Mm.
And then these ones, I love these. These are your
Oh yeah, those.
beveled edge surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's got a beveled edge like this. And they're just so beautiful to work on. And they have the little hanger on the back. So they're really great. And then a couple like cutting board things,
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So many good stuff now. You guys have really been upping the products. And then this one has been keeping my kids occupied in my office while I'm working. So
oh yeah.
beautiful artwork there, right?
Good.
Oh, you can kind of see there's remnants of my last name. I mean,
Oh,
they were doing all sorts of fun stuff with it,
fun.
but it's really kept them happy in the office while I'm working. So
yeah, good.
And then quite possibly another one of my favorite products of yours, and one that I recommend to every single wood burning artist if they're starting out and they're new, is your Versatool.
Mm-hmm.
This tool you can use from the time you're a baby burner or when you're a professional. It doesn't matter. This thing is just such a solid machine.
It's a good one.
It's such a good one. So anyways, those are some of my favorites. I don't know if there's any others that you wanted to share or talk about, but I would love for you to just kind of talk about some Walnut Hollow products and stuff.
Yeah, so I don't really have a lot here.
At your house?
I have some random stuff kind of hung around, but I am plugged in, so I can't take you around. But maybe I'll post on our stories later of some
that would be awesome.
I have. So you basically covered like all of the wood surfaces. So we have the basswood with bark, the plain like basswood panels. So both of those are great for wood burning. And the basswood round with the bark is the original Walnut Hollow product. And we also have the plank, that's the rectangle that has the bark on two sides.
Yes, which is like this one, but
right. Yep, it's just the back side of that one. Yep. And then
and
we
then you
also
have this one too, the thick slices.
Yes,
now.
the thick. I was gonna say is one of my new favorites. They're so fun
because they can stand up on a shelf too.
And you can even make it a shelf. I mean, it would be
totally
narrow, but yeah.
Totally.
So then we also have pine surfaces, which are mainly more for like painting or like sign making. But the new pine serving boards are actually really great for wood burning. They're we use like a butcher block construction, so it's like little strips of wood all glued together.
Hold on, let me grab it.
Yeah, and people like don't believe me when I say that it's pine, but they burn really nicely, which I was not really expecting. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like pieced together, but it does burn smoothly. I've done one.
Yeah.
Better than most pines you would come across. I don't know whether it's the grain or what you did, but it's
yeah, they burn a lot better than any of our other like pine plaques. But then we have the Baltic birch, which is the beveled edge surface. So that's like a lighter grain wood, and it's a little harder, but still burns pretty well. And what else do we have? I think that's it. Oh, we have some rustic pallet signs. They're not like as popular as they used to be, like when everyone was using them for weddings and things like that. But they were like pretty rough, and we have kind of innovated those to be smoother, so you don't have to sand them all down before you start using them. They're like ready to paint, which is really nice. And then as far as tools go, we have the Creative Wood Burner Value Kit, which is the green handled. That's like the beginner tool. And then we have the detailer, which is a lower temperature tool, and a lot of people use that for like more kind of like shading type things. It has a tan handle. Then we have the CVT.
Yeah, I have one. I don't know what it is right now.
Oh, I think we're yeah, yep.
Oh, can you hear all right?
Yeah, you're just running a little, you're like lagging.
I'm like,
So
come
then
on, internet.
we have the creative wood burner, or the creative versatool, which we call
Yeah.
the CVT, which is like I mean, it's great for everyone, which has all the different points in it. Yep.
And it's got the temperature control.
Mm-hmm. And then the most recent tool was the creative wood burner, the wire tip tool. So that was probably our biggest innovation as far as tools go. We also have a leather branding tool, which looks exactly the same as like the creative versatool, but it doesn't have the temperature control. It has a brown handle, and it's a lower temps that's specifically made for leather. Yep, and then we also have a stencil to go with that, where the like mini flow point fits perfectly inside of it. So if people want to add like their name or initials or something to a piece, they can do that. We also have some wood carving tools and like whittler's kits, and I guess that's
and
it
the
for
hot stamps too. You've got
yep,
like
the
the hot
stamp.
stamp,
Yep.
which are like letters and numbers and symbols and things that you can add to like your versatool.
Mm-hmm.
And
we
those are
also
awesome.
have clock movements too.
Yeah, I've used them.
Yeah, I always forget about those.
I have two wood-burned clocks that live in my house
Oh,
using your clock parts, and I love them.
nice.
Yeah. Well, whenever I used to find like the perfect circular clock-like wood piece, I had to turn it off for a little while. Like there was a while where it was like, oh, clock one, I've got to turn it into one, you know? It's always like a rare
Yeah, and they're so easy to make.
Yeah, they're so fun. They're so fun. Okay, so one question that I have, and this is one that I think a lot of people have, is like, how are your wood surfaces prepared? And then what would you say is like the best way for us to store them so that they stay in tip-top shape?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when I was talking earlier about how the logs are in the log lot, so those are just basswood. So those are going to be like basswood panels, or like basswood country rounds or planks. So all of those come in log form, but then like our pine and stuff comes already like prepared for manufacturing. So for the basswood, it's brought in and cut, and then it's put into our kiln, which is basically, it kind of is just like a big garage warehouse looking thing. We have several, I don't remember how many, I think 3. So those are constantly running on like a drying schedule. So depending on how thick the pieces are, they'll dry for longer periods of time. We kind of have that down to a science based on like how many we can get through each round and like the different temperatures and stuff that they need to be at. So once they're cut and dried, which means that all of the moisture is taken out and there won't be any like bugs or all of that weird stuff, it's taken into the manufacturing plant where it's sanded and then either like cut down and then like reassembled into something else, like the basswood panel. Those are cut down and then glued together through the manufacturing process. So we don't use any like, I don't know, chemicals or stuff like that to preserve it or anything. It's all
right.
Yep.
Natural wood, just dried and sanded.
Mm-hmm.
How many people work for Walnut Hollow? Like how many people are on the Walnut Hollow team in all of the different aspects in the office and in manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
and in production and all of that stuff?
So total right now we have about 90
Okay.
employees.
That's
It
it's
kind of
honestly
depends
it's bigger
on,
than I thought it was for some reason. I don't know why, but
yeah.
there's so many aspects of it. It makes sense that you would need at least that many people to
Mm-hmm.
do all of this stuff.
So the majority of those people are working in the plant,
mm-hmm.
at either like cutting, sanding, packaging, all of that stuff, shipping. We have about, I'd say like 15 people in our like office building, which is where I am. And then
Okay.
there's about like 5 or 6 managers that work at the plant that are doing like shipping and like manufacturing schedules and all of that. And then we have two shifts at the plant. So I believe it's like 7 to 3 and then 3 to 11.
Cool. It's
Hmm.
such an interesting process. I'm like so intrigued by this. This is great.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
behind the scenes.
yeah, oh, I can only imagine. That's like we only get to scratch the surface of all that you do and all of that, but it's nice to get a little taste and get to know a little bit more about what
Hmm.
you guys all do behind the scenes. Um, so now that we kind of know how the surfaces are prepared, what's the best way for us to store them that they stay as beautiful as they are when we get them?
I would say any of the pieces that come with shrink wrap, I would keep the shrink wrap on until you're ready to use them. That
Okay.
just helps preserve the bark. That's really the only reason why we ship those with shrink wrap. I know that it's plastic, but it really helps preserve the bark edge around it. And
Yeah.
uh, I mean, they can get really messy too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say keep the shrink wrap on and keep it in like a cool, dry place, like and not like in direct sunlight because the sun will
Yeah.
affect um, the
It
wood. So
sure
we have
will.
some
I'm
like
like,
pine.
I can,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got an example of that. Hold on. I don't know if you guys can see this, but there was a sticker
Yeah.
on the plastic, and then I had the wood piece in sunlight, and look at what it did.
Mm-hmm.
So keep your wood pieces out of sunlight. Don't make
Yeah.
my mistake.
Yeah.
Luckily,
We
the other
have.
side is perfectly fine. But and I can sand it down and all of that stuff, but still, it's
Right.
much better if you can keep it looking nice from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Photojournal girl just asked if it's a family-owned business. Yes, it's yeah, family-owned and run and with some help, but yes, family-owned.
Yes.
Um, so my next question is, when did you guys start making pyrography tools? Was it like shortly after the wood products started, or like when did that happen, and which one was the first one?
So my uncle Scott, so my mom's brother, he was very creative. He has since passed away, but he was very creative and artistic, and he started going to trade shows with my grandpa when he was just a teenager. And he kind of started the whole wood burning trend and tool. He designed that tool and was like there for every part of the process. And a lot of like our pattern books were also designed, and some of the patterns were like drawn by him.
That's
Um,
cool.
so he was the one who kind of got things started with that, and then it kind of took off from there. And that was in like probably the mid to late 70s,
Okay.
which is when, wood burning
Yeah.
was really popular.
Yeah, it did become.
Um, and the tool it was a version, I would say, of the value tool. I mean, it
Okay.
looks much different now, but it came with like colored pencils and a few tips, and then I think it came with some patterns. There's so many like old versions of it. I'm not sure
So
which one is the
no,
the
you
true
guys need to have like
first.
a little Walnut Hollow like history museum part
Yeah.
of your yeah. Um, okay, so are there any new products that are in the works or new releases that maybe you want to point out or talk about? I mean, I know that we just talked
Um,
about a bunch of new wood pieces, but I mean, if there's
mhm.
anything else in the works that you wanted to tease or mention, if there's something.
So we're basically always working on wood development. So usually what sparks our wood development conversations are requests from our retailers like Hobby Lobby or Joann or Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually we don't put out a product unless it's picked up by one of them, just because it's way more cost effective for us to make like
Yeah.
large rounds of all of these things. So uh, usually that's what sparks that, but lately we've been kind of just exploring more like modern surfaces and things, which is what you just showed with like the basswood panels and
Yeah.
the beveled edge surfaces and stuff.
I know personally, like the stuff that you guys are making now with these different surfaces and the beveled edge and stuff. These are my jam. Like, and I know that I'm not the only one that is like so into this. So I think
Right.
it's fantastic.
And
And
then,
it just
one thing that we have been working on is making more things for Amazon. So Amazon, it's super easy for us to get product on there. So, and we can kind of make it a more, uh, I don't want to say high ticket item, but a more like high quality piece that is not just for a craft store. So we're looking at using some different species of wood and having them be more like home decor type items.
cool.
And then as far as tools go, we're working on some innovation, but I don't really have much information about that yet.
Okay. All right, but we can stay tuned, which is
Yeah.
exciting. I'll
Yep.
take that tiny bit and I will hold on to it. That sounds good to me. Um, what has been like your favorite product that you helped develop? What's been like your baby, I would say?
My baby was definitely the creative wood burner, the
Okay,
wire tool.
this guy.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we have the same baby. That's great.
So that started as we kind of started thinking of innovations, and then I went to China with our product manager, and that started our conversation with our supplier to find kind of a more, well, for sure, more cost-effective product and a better price for the customer, but more of like a crafty tool than like a more than like a industrial looking tool, and
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
that's not so intimidating.
Hmm.
Um, and so I helped with, I didn't do a lot of like the technical stuff, but I helped with like the overall look of the tool and the what tips we would want and the packaging and the
So
instructions and
cool.
all of that. So
So fun.
definitely
Well, and
that. But I,
it's such a pretty burner. Like it's
mm-hmm,
one of those that just looks pretty in pictures and
right.
pretty in shots and stuff. It's such a pretty burner.
Yeah, but I really love like all wood development too. I think it's really fun to like see something and be inspired by a shape or like just like a different use for something, and then kind of
Hmm.
sketching that out and sending it to our workers over in the plant and or our engineers and saying, how can we make this here? And then it coming back as like a real sample is really cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, that sounds really fun. Um, okay, so now I want to kind of dive into more of like specifically for wood burning.
Hmm.
Um, so what do you recommend that pyrographers clean their tool, like your tools with? And is there a difference between the tools and how you clean them?
So I'm not like a very like professional wood burner, so I may not have the best advice, but usually what we tell people for any of the screw-in points, like the Creative Versa tool or the detailer or the value kit, those tips, if they collect like a residue, you can just use a really fine grit sandpaper and lightly just brush it off and it will come right off. Or
Yeah.
you can use a damp sponge and that will help take that stuff off too. As far as the creative wood burner, I would say sometimes you can just kind of tap it on the stand and the residue will come off, depending on
Okay.
what kind, like if it's like sap or like graphite residue. Or I'm guilty of using sandpaper if it's really bothering me and I can't
It's,
get it
do
off.
you know what? I I know that some people really have they get all upset if you say use
Hmm.
sandpaper on a wood burning tool because they are worried about breaking down the different nibs. And as long as it's like a solid nib one or something that has some bulk to it, I have not found any problems with using a fine, it needs to be a fine grit
Fine,
sandpaper,
yes.
fine grit sandpaper, but I have no problems using that. when you get to like the shading nibs, I do
Mm-hmm.
think that like I have found that like a damp sponge works really
Mm-hmm.
well with those, but also um when they're off, using the leather strop with the white compound really gets them so
Mm-hmm.
shiny and clean. It's
Yeah.
the leather strop and white compound, they're a tool that's used for cleaning knives, which makes sense because you want to get it, you know, really sharp and clean, and get all the gunk and dirt off of it without ruining the integrity of the knife, right? Or without
Right.
ruining the integrity of the metal parts. And so it works really well on the burners. What I have found, and what is my favorite beyond sandpaper and beyond even the white compound and the leather strop, is just a brass brush.
Mm.
While I'm burning, if I just could just a little scrape and I'm good to
Yep.
go. It just cleans off the outside bits without messing with the metal, I have found.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, I have one of
it,
those in the back where I
yeah,
work on wood burning stuff too. So
yeah, it's just my favorite. But I also know some people just use leather, the backside of leather. There's so many
mm-hmm.
different ways that you can clean your nibs. So, you know,
Yeah, and
it's
it's
good to
really
hear from the manufacturers themselves say, like, there's really, you can clean it this way, you can clean it that way.
mm-hmm.
Just as long as you have clean nibs, then you get a much cleaner burn.
Right. And
So,
it
oh,
is really just it's kind of
that's what
just
I was
trial
gonna
and
say. I don't know why that keeps happening. It's the strangest thing. This time I think it was because I went to look at old comments and then it
mm.
just froze. I don't know why that happens, but I just won't touch it now.
Okay.
I'll get the questions as they come and then I'll make sure I ask you. Um, so someone was why it's important to clean the nibs and to clean your tips, and really to have a really nice clean burn, you want to have a clean nib, and you'll notice as soon as you start cleaning
Mm-hmm.
your nib, in the nibs, and to clean your tips, and really to have a really nice clean burn, you want to have a clean nib, and you'll notice as soon as you start cleaning
Mm-hmm.
your nibs how much like just smoother and easier. And so it's that I like to have my brass brush right next to me while I'm burning, because I'll clean it every minute or two or three if I have to, if I'm doing a nice dark burn.
Hi.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
We're just gonna have to see. Okay, we'll just move on to the next question. Are there more nib options coming for the creative wood burner?
Yeah.
People are asking. Yes, the answer is
Yes.
yes, people.
So they will be available on our website, but first they're going to be out in Hobby Lobby and Michael stores. Originally, that was scheduled for this summer,
Okay.
like June and July, but
Okay.
right now I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, but we will keep everyone posted.
Can you tell us how many new nibs we're getting?
There's 4. Yes.
All right. All right. That's all I'll ask. I won't ask anymore.
Okay.
Um, so I myself have been really, really lucky to get to work with you guys on so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
We've done collaborations, we've done the packaging on the creative wood burner, and a bunch of different challenges. You sponsored the wood burning retreat, the first ever burn club retreat, and the trice, which I think you guys have at Walnut Hollow headquarters,
Mm-hmm.
and so many other things that I'm sure I'm forgetting at this point. What's your favorite thing that we've worked on together? That's what I would love to know.
I think there's 2. I think, well, I mean, there's more than 2, but
I have
the
my favorites too. It's okay.
I think the burnt months have been amazing at just
Yeah.
building this community and just like showing the world what wood burning can actually be.
Yeah.
But I also really loved the traveling wood, and I have that piece at my desk, and I see it like every day, and it's so cool. I think it was such a cool project. But
It
then I
really
also
was.
loved working on the packaging, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
So you have three favorites. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't mind having those three as favorites. I think that the burnt months definitely have had the most impact just because of how it got us all together. What I was saying is that the burnt months and bringing everybody together, I just think that those were some of the best things that we've
hmm
and I know that like the connections I've made and the connections other people have made just by finding each other through that challenge.
Right.
I mean, there's no way that we can possibly understand the impact that it's really had on people. You know what I mean? I just think it's so cool. So thank you for always doing them with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're a blast, and I know I'm not the only one that thinks so. So I would love to know what kind of growth you guys have seen in the pyrography community, because I know you said in the 70s it was, you know, pyrography was like really big, and I feel like it's having its comeback again. And so I just was wondering if you guys have seen that as well, and what kind of growth you've seen.
Yeah, so I started working at Walnut Hollow when I graduated from college in 2015. And like in the fall, I took over the social media, and I think at that time we had maybe 2,000 followers on Instagram. And so I kind of revamped that and tried to put an emphasis on wood burning and our basswood country rounds, because those are the two things that we're known for. And I think just like the constant sharing and then getting more people involved and following, showing our customers how popular wood burning is, I think that's helping a ton. They're picking up the new tool and more wood burning surfaces, and they're sharing it on their social media. I think it's really, it's picked up a lot.
I mean, I've noticed it, and I know that I'm not the only one that has noticed it.
Right, and that's the reason why we've been trying to do more tool innovation, just because there's such a demand for it. I mean, if we didn't have that community on Instagram, we probably wouldn't have the wire tip point, because the CVT would have been just good enough for everyone that was working. So,
well, that's awesome to hear. So what other crafts and hobbies do you see people using Walnut Hollow products for?
a lot of people use it just for like home decor stuff. Um, we have some like the hot knife tool that a lot of hobbyists use to create like model like boats and stuff like that, more intricate designs. A lot of kind of like cosplay costume designs are like used with the some of the hot tools. What else? That's pretty much it, I think. I mean, there's probably
Yeah,
so much more that I don't know about.
so, I mean, that's a wood round that I turned into a bookshelf. So like
hmm
there's no limit to the things that you can use these wood slices for, which is
Right.
so fun. So what that brings me to like one of my last questions, which is like, what is some of the most like unique and interesting ways that you've seen your products used? Because I remember seeing like Miley Cyrus
hmm
use wood round for her it was like her cake stand or something. And I messaged you. I was like, look, Hannah, it's Walnut Hollow. Like Miley Cyrus is using your wood for her wedding cake.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering like what other like, you know, places have you seen your wood slices that like got you all excited?
Um, well, we still freak out like every time we see our stuff, just like you were freaking out when you saw it. A lot of like we have a lot of really cute like local boutiques and stuff, and a lot of them use it for like jewelry displays or things like that, or even at like markets and stuff. People use it for that type of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest exciting ones was we're in a lot of magazines sometimes for like DIY projects, but
Yeah.
Martha Stewart magazine featured Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's wedding, and they used our I think they were pine plaques for like something for their table display.
Oh, that's
And most of
awesome.
the times it doesn't like call out the brand, but that time it did. So that was really cool that it said like walnuthollow.com if you
Oh
want
my
to
gosh.
buy
Yeah.
these. Yeah.
So excited.
Um, Last summer when Making It was on, we provided a lot of wood surfaces for that TV show, so that was really cool. Um, I don't know
When
if
Amy
you've seen,
Poehler and Nick Offerman are like
yep,
touching your products, you're like,
yeah.
okay, this is yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool.
I don't know if you've seen Tiger King, but there's a Basswood Country round in that.
Yes, yes, we all saw that in one of it's the interview of what's his name, the guy that threw him under the bus. What's his?
Yeah.
Jeff, right?
Jeff. Yep.
Yeah, Jeff. So while they're doing interviews of Jeff in the background, you can see a wood round, and yeah, I think all of us burners saw it. We're like, ah! Yeah, that's really fun.
So that's the most recent one. I freaked out a little bit when I saw that.
Yeah, you know you've made it when you're on Tiger King. No, but that's awesome. Okay, so I have some questions from the community.
Okay.
One person was asking, what type of wood is best to look for on a large scale, and where can they find some? Like large scale. I don't know how large they're talking, but what is the largest size that you guys offer right now?
The biggest we have is a 3-foot plank.
Okay,
so
which I think
36 inches.
I think it's this guy, isn't it?
That's the 23 inch. That's the 23 inch. We have a bigger one.
Yeah, okay.
And you can find that at Hobby Lobby has that now. I'm not sure that they're shipping it because it's such a large item, but they do have it in their stores, so you can check that out once their stores reopen. And we have some product at Home Depot, like in the lumber section.
Yeah.
That's where those larger pieces are too.
The large pieces at Home Depot, that's right. Okay, and then another person was asking, is there any attachment or something that can be added to the creative burner to turn up the heat?
No. But if someone's having an issue with the heat, it could be an internal like wiring issue. So if you've noticed that your tool is not getting as hot as it normally would, you should contact our customer service and they'll send you a free replacement.
And Walnut Hollow has the best customer service, in case you're wondering.
Depending on when you bought it or like what round of production your tool was from, it may have this issue. We've seen it a few times. So if you have noticed that it is getting less hot, definitely call us. Otherwise, I don't think it's really safe to have it any hotter than it is. It's about 1,000 degrees. So I think if you went any higher than that, it would just kind of char your wood. You wouldn't really get a nice burn.
Okay. One person was asking, and this is from Photojournal Goal, what goals do you guys have for the future of your company? That's kind of a big lofty one, but
yeah, especially during these times.
Yeah.
I would say just keep our community strong and keep good relationships with all of our retailers and keep them inspired by everything that you guys are sharing on here. And hopefully creating more great products that everyone loves.
Yeah. Great answer, Hannah.
Thanks.
Okay. This is an interesting one. They said, how has your strategy changed for getting your product out there from the beginning years until now?
Oh man, that's hard. Well,
there was an Instagram back when they started in the 70s, that's for sure.
Right. So most sales were done at trade shows back then. So you would take your product to a trade show and people would place their sales orders there for like the first quarter or whatever of the year and then continue to place reorders. Now our trade shows are more like project driven and like content creator driven. So it's mostly bloggers and people like that there that want to partner up with you. There's really not a lot of selling going on. So we've had really strong relationships with the retailers since we've been partners with them since we started. Since they started placing those orders at those long ago trade shows. So we're really lucky because we have been with them for so long that we have that strong relationship where we're not really trying to make new ones at this point. We have our product in pretty much every craft retailer. So
that's awesome. That makes it a lot easier. One person was asking, what are your top 3 favorite products that you offer? Or maybe you could talk about your top 3 products that you guys make. Because I know it's probably the basswood rounds, I imagine, the country rounds. And I'm willing to guess it's the Versual and the creative wood burner. That's my guess. But what you have to tell me, what's What are
Yeah,
the
I
best?
think those are probably my favorite. I really like the new serving boards too. I think that
Yeah,
those are really fun.
these guys.
But I do, right. I like just the traditional basswood country round. I mean, that's what our entire company is built off of. So it's really
Well, and
cool
it's
to see how much that has grown and how much it's still selling and growing
I mean,
and
that's what brought me to you guys originally back
hmm
in 2011 when I got married, was walking around Michael's, seeing a large basswood round
hmm
and seeing that I could burn. And I was like, huh, I'll try that. Got myself around, got myself a burner, and went home and tried it and was
hmm
hooked. So was it was the bass round that brought me in to the whole world of wood burning. So it
Oh, you're kind of
was you guys from
lagging.
the start. Um, okay. Well, I think that's about all I have for you, honestly. If there's any other questions from anybody that's listening, go ahead and type them. Do you have anything that you want to? I'm hoping has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yep, you're caught up. You were lagged
Can you
for a while, so I was listening to like slow motion.
catch up? Yeah, but it's okay now. Okay.
Yep.
So if anybody has any other questions that they want to ask, please feel free to ask. But this was so much fun and so informative. I'm sorry technology was awful for
Oh,
us, but
that's not your
we
fault.
did make it through. We did make it through. And I swear I have tried everything to get it just right, but it seems to, I don't know what's
hmm
going on. I don't know why. But this has been so fun and informative, and I really appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. Um, I am going to go through and look at all of the different questions we asked today, what you talked about. I will take any other questions that people have, and then we will get this all compiled down in a blog post for everybody soon. So they have those answers there, and any follow-up questions that people have too, because I'm sure some questions will come up after watching all of this. And then also you guys are going to be able to find this on YouTube. So be sure to check that out later today or tomorrow at the latest. But this was so much fun to get to chat with you guys.
Yeah.
Go and check Walnut Hollow. You can find them at walnuthollow.com. You can follow them on Instagram. You're going to have to wait to buy products from their website at the moment, but they will be back up and running as soon as they can. Amazing company, amazing products. Thank you so much, Hannah, for doing this
Thank
with
you.
me.
This was so fun.
It was so much fun. It's nice to see your face and to get to chat with you about
Yeah.
all the questions I had. And I really, so thank you. And you guys, we will
Yeah,
see
thank
you
you.
all later. Find us on Instagram at Woodburn Corner and at Walnut Hollow, and we'll see you around. Bye.
Bye.